Top 10 facts about the Templars. 1. The order was created to protect pilgrims. After the conquest of Jerusalem by the Crusaders in 1099 AD, the Middle East was suddenly full of Christian pilgrims on their way to the Holy Land. While the city was under some protection, much of the surrounding area was unguarded and nothing prevented roving gangs of robbers from preying on unsuspecting and defenseless pilgrims. In 1119, some of the knights who had fought in the First Crusade united with the blessing of King Baldwin II of Jerusalem to form the order that would later become known as the Templar Order. It was an order of monastic warriors dedicated to the defense of the pilgrims of Jerusalem and neighboring kingdoms. 2. Humble beginnings. At first, things were not at all easy for the Templars. In fact, during the first 10 years of the order, the knights had great difficulties with numbers and finances. At the time of its foundation there were only 9 knights and even fewer horses, which is reflected in one of the most famous emblems of the Order Templiarov, which depicts 2 knights in armor on a horse. It was not until 1129 that the Roman Catholic Church officially recognized the order, after which the Templars began to gain popularity far beyond the Holy Land and eventually became an influential organization known throughout the Christian world. 3. The Poor Warriors of Christ and the Temple of Solomon. Throughout its long history, the Templar Order has been referred to in many different ways, simply as Templars, Knights of the Temple, Poor Knights of Christ, and Knights of the Templar Order. However, the original name is much more verbose: the Poor Warriors of Christ and the Temple of Solomon. This full name goes back to the founding of the Templars after the First Crusade and reflects the vow of poverty taken by the knights, as well as the order's association with the mythical Temple of Solomon. 4. The Temple of Solomon. Solomon's temple was a biblical temple believed to have once stood on the Temple Mount in the holy city of Jerusalem, where the famous Dome of the Rock now stands, as well as the Al-Aqsa Mosque. When the Crusaders conquered Jerusalem during the First Crusade, they renamed Al-Aqsa the Temple of Solomon. They believed that the mosque was built on the ruins of the original temple, and then gave the whole place to the newly formed Templar Order, who named themselves after the temple and used it as their headquarters until the final fall of Jerusalem under the Muslim onslaught in 1187. 5. Crusades. The Knights Templar played a major role during the Crusades. Their superior equipment, martial arts, and tactics enabled them to turn the tide of battle more than once. They often served as guards for newly created states in lands conquered by the Crusaders, helping to protect pilgrims, protect supply routes, and even rebuild fortifications. The Templars helped achieve victory in many major conflicts, such as the Siege of Acre in 1189 to 1191, the Battle of Montgisard in 1177, and the conquest of Damietta in 1218 to 1219. Unfortunately, it must be said that they also participated in the brutal sacking of Constantinople in 1204. There the Crusader forces were called upon to defend the ancient city from invaders, but instead they sacked and destroyed the city themselves. 6. White robes. One of the most characteristic features of the Templars was the white robes they wore. All knights of the order were required to wear white robes over their armor, decorated with a red cross at all hours of the vigil. They were even forbidden to eat or talk among themselves without this garment. When the knights went into battle, they proudly donned their white cloaks and white horse blankets, which also bore the red cross of the Templars. 7. They never gave up. The Knights Templar had a very strict set of rules regarding warfare. One of the most important was that a knight had no right to surrender as long as a single red cross hovered over the battlefield. By taking the oath, all Templars voluntarily agreed to give their lives if necessary, meaning they had no right to lay down their arms until all the flags had fallen. Combined with their superior training in heavy armor, this uncompromising dedication made the Knights Templar one of their most formidable opponents. 8. They had no single method of combat training. There is no doubt that the Knights Templar Order was well armed and incredibly well trained. Surprisingly, however, they had no set rules or standards for combat training. This was probably due to the fact that knights had to be trained in the art of war before becoming Templars. Although they did not train together, all knights had to be proficient in sword, spear, and horseback riding, as well as well versed in combat tactics. 9. Most Templars were not knights at all. Although the primary function of the Knights of the Temple was military, the vast majority of the members of the order were not knights at all. At any one time the number of true knights did not exceed a couple of hundred, and the rest of the brotherhood consisted of infantry soldiers and non-combatants, including squires, priests, laborers, and even women. 10. The Templars used the services of mercenaries. The Knights Templar were not at all opposed to mercenary armies for support on the battlefield. Especially during the Crusades, the Templars were known to hire reinforcements from Trichopolis, Anatolian light cavalry, and mounted archer squads composed of Seljuk Christians and Middle Eastern Orthodox Christians. Some mercenaries even officially joined the Templars as unchartered foot soldiers.